I went to the Lower Providence Police Department and talked to Chief Francis Carroll. He has been working in the police department for 37 years. Here he will tell you his thoughts on racial profiling.
I can't say that it doesn't occur across the United States. I can tell you that uh, in this area, we've emphasized training police officers in the area of ensuring that we respect the rights of all individuals. That has been an emphasis of training in Pennsylvania since probably the early 1990s. Just by way of background, this department uh, had a very, very bad experience in 1987 where we were accused of racial profiling. And this actually was before the term racial profiling or any of the other euphemisms were developed, whereby uh, there were minority motorists who made allegations by filing a federal lawsuit against our department and subsequently a complaint against the department with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. So, on two fronts, through the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and in federal court, we essentially had to defend ourselves against these allegations. So I could tell you that in this area, my experience has been that racial profiling doesn't occur. However, I attribute most of that to the training that's taken place since the early 1990s. The training is contrary to racial profiling, and it begins in the police academy. There are specific um, uh, modules within the police academy. I used to teach the one module, which was cultural diversity, where we essentially explain to police officers what is required um, in order to effect a stop, whether it be a vehicle stop or a pedestrian stop, and more importantly, the constitutional protections. I mean, that's, we swear on a Bible when we get this job to protect the constitutional rights of all individuals. So, um, to the contrary, you're trained not to racial profile as opposed to racial profile. I think it's I think it's I can't I think it's reprehensible. That would be probably the most appropriate word that I could think of, because, as I say, we take an oath that we're going to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States. So if we compromise that, whether it be through racial profiling or ethnic profiling or any type of discriminatory behavior against any individual or any group, then we're violating that oath. It's not just that we're violating the law, we're violating our oath. I think that's a great question, and I think it's a question that sort of demands a long answer, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. I think most of it comes down to ignorance. I think the underlying issue is ignorance, that we don't have an understanding of people that are different than us, and whether it be the way that I would explain it, and the way that I explained it to police officers in training, is that people profile us.
Right.
People profile the police. They profile. They take certain characteristics of a very, very small group of the police department, and they attribute those stereotypes to the entire department. So, for instance, what do people think about police officers? Well, they sit around, they drink coffee, and they eat donuts. Well, I've been a police officer for 37 years. I don't drink coffee and I don't eat donuts. So, I break the stereotype or the profile. It's no different than any ethnic group or any racial group. So I think most of it goes back to ignorance. I think some of it goes back to the natural strain between racial and ethnic groups that we've seen throughout history. I'm hoping that we're becoming more intelligent and more sensitive about those issues. I've always been very, very conscious. I mean, I was very, very fortunate that I grew up in this area, and I had an exposure to a lot of different things. And then when I went to college, I was exposed to a lot of different things. And then, quite frankly, the experience in 1987, having to go and testify before the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, sitting at a table, and that was really, I'd been here 3 years when that happened, and that really, really sort of enlightened me to, you really have to be aware, not just of it actually happening, but even the appearance of it happening.
Okay.
So, no, I've always been very, very conscious, and as a police chief since 2000, since the year 2000, it's something that we get across to our officers from the very first day that they get hired here. It's part of our FTO program. It's part of our policy and procedures. Since 2006, we've been accredited. Part of accreditation is we have to have a policy saying it's entitled bias-based policing. Not just that we have the policy, but once every 3 years, we retrain our officers in bias-based policing, so that we're ensuring that they understand what the policy of the department is. And every year, I have to review every single personnel complaint against our department to see if there's an underlying issue of racial profiling.